Media business that knows what its business model is going to be in 20 years' time. So great has been the digital disruption. So it doesn't matter whether you're talking about newspapers, movies where DVD revenues have fallen off a cliff, TV, they're losing share. So that is like a huge headache for them. But on the other hand, huge opportunities as we create this new digital economy. Big challenge, big headache, and if you've got the stomach for it, which probably means either that you're on laughing gas or you're relatively young, a great opportunity.
It's hard to say, is television winning, losing? What we can be certain of is people will consume as much or more media than they did in the past, but they may consume it in different ways because of the magic of digital. It should all be a positive, but it's going to be very disruptive, the way we think about video in the future.
I think the two biggest things that will affect the media world are both derived from the internet. Number one is the move to more interactivity in all forms of media and entertainment. And number two is the change in the distribution model for the distribution of content and advertising.
The ease of maneuver through what used to be the technological barriers will have become so second nature that you won't even think about it. And content creators and people trying to make money out of content will all have to adapt to that ease of maneuver.
People have much more power over what they consume and when they consume it. And they're using that power more and more at every part of the year. I don't think we need another revolution. I think we're going to see a hybrid world where actually some quite traditional forms of media coexist. But I think that shift of power and choice away from the producer and the distributor towards the consumer is the central fact of what's happening.
It's still possible in isolated pockets to invent shows that captivate large audiences. The public like that, but they do like to get round comedy show moments. There will be fewer of them, they will be worth more, but they're still possible and they still exist. And of course, it's a truism to say they still exist in sport.
The big winners in all of this are obviously the consumer, because the consumer is able to access content more at the time that they want to see it in more of a searchable and on-demand way. And secondly, I do think the content owner is the winner.
Now try it and take the drink. That's just you drink, young as you think.
One of the major issues facing the content industries now, and therefore I would suggest the advertising industries who like to advertise around professional content, is that it's not clear how we're going to pay for content in the future.
We're already seeing a severe decline in the commitment to high-end quality content. We've all got to understand that free is the enemy of quality.
I think what you're going to see is a lot more usage and value of very low cost of production content, and therefore also a lot more premium on high cost of production content to really be differentiated, unique, and interesting. On the big content budgets, no doubt it's going to take a mix of advertising and subscription/transaction funding. And on the tail content, I think you will get some things which are transaction funded and most of which is advertising funded.
What we want to do with iAds is to deliver interaction, but also deliver emotion. And we want to be here.
We also have to figure out a model that allows advertising and great consumer experiences to coexist.
The interesting thing with the internet, and this is also the challenge, is that you can't mass market it. But instead you need to find how to target it for the right audience.
Because television is going to be available and consumable on so many different types of devices, the behavior is different per screen, and so because the behavior is different, then the advertising and the analytics will actually end up being different.
One campaign means, in fact, that we might be pushing 10 different messages to 10 different audiences.
A big trend that we see, and it's happening everywhere, is the whole concept of social media. One of the challenges with brand advertisers is that the brand dialogue, the brand perception is really oftentimes in the hands of the consumer. The most innovative brands are the ones that are actually taking the opportunity to engage and influence that dialogue. If advertisers, if content owners, if publishers can take advantage of that and really optimize accordingly, then you'll have these opportunities to engage with consumers in really, really unique ways.
I've brought you a gift.
What is it?
It's a crystal. Symbol of the future.
We are all interested in the future.
I don't know the future.
There's a lot at stake.
I think there are many things that we don't yet know.
The only true wisdom consists in knowing that you know nothing. You want answers?
Tell us the answer.
I think there are still many uncertainties.
Show me the final answer.
We are learning every day.
The answer to the ultimate question is...
So we couldn't resist when we made that video. Obviously, we interviewed a lot of people, and they had some very powerful things to say and very confident things to say. But of course, intertwined with all that was the fact that they really don't know what's happening, right? It's happening amongst them, it's happening to them, and the fact is that we wanted to capture that idea as well. So although there's a tremendous amount of change happening and there's a lot at stake, there's a great opportunity for marketers to have a very different approach to this and a different impact to that. And that's a pretty interesting space. So I was going to leave you with these last three things, which are the new rules that I think are some of the themes that you just saw in this presentation, which were that we have to create a shared stewardship for our brands with consumers, because there's an exchange that needs to happen that's quite different than in the past, where we could tell consumers exactly pretty much what they thought, and we could, you know, bring them that information over time in a very concentrated way. But they're not really listening to us as much anymore, listening to each other. So how do we build a shared stewardship? I don't mean give up the right to do this, right? It's not as if we've lost control, but we have to share that stewardship. We have to share that ability to work with brands. Second is demonstrate transparency and authenticity and accountability. Make sure that we are transparent. There's been a whole bunch of just recent examples and ongoing examples where brands, people, celebrities, etc. get exposed very quickly. And it can change incredibly fast in this space and time. And I think we have to be very careful of the upside and downside of the same place. And then last is the architects of community. You need to be able to moderate brand conversations using new tools. And I showed you just some of the new tools that are coming out and the opportunities. But I think that this is by far one of the hardest things for us to do, is say, how are we going to make sure that we're amplifying those conversations that we want consumers to have? How are we going to make sure that the stories that consumers tell about our brands are the ones that we want to amplify? And that's got to become a big part of our role that we go forward with. Not only are we telling those stories, but we're also amplifying those. And I think that's an understanding the customer journey and the path that they roll in, and say, what right do we have to play in this journey and where? And then we amplify those messages that we can. So I hope that was a good start, a sort of view of the world. So, okay, thank you.
Спасибо большое. Вопрос экспортом. Не стесняйтесь спрашивать на русском языке, у исхода есть хедфон, и вопрос переводится.